Hi, everyone, and my name's Kaylin, and welcome to our fourth ever DreamSpace HomeSpace series MakeCode Arcade session. That is a mouthful. And today with us we have Corey.
Hi, everyone.
And in the background, as always, we have Neve, Amanda, and Richard ready to answer any questions that you have. So do remember that that exists, and you can just throw in any questions that you have today when we're doing our code. Now, we are doing so much code today and doing a lot of advanced coding. So remember that you can just put the webinar on pause at any point, catch up, and then come back and follow with us. So just take it at your own pace. Don't worry about it. Okay? So today we are going to be building on the code that we did last week. So I'm going to click out of the PowerPoint and I'm going to go to the website that we've been going to every week to find the stuff from last week. If you weren't here last week, or if you're just joining us today for the first time, don't worry about it. We just recommend that you go back to the very first week, catch up on all the sessions, and then join in with us today. Because every week we have been building on the same game. So it's better if you just go back to the very first webinar and watch from there on. So to access all of those files, all we have to do is go to aka.ms/HomeSpace files. Okay, so aka.ms/HomeSpace files. Okay, and when that opens up, you'll see our wakelet. So if you scroll down, the very first thing that you'll see here is the playlist of all of the previous webinars. So you just click in there, go back to the first webinar, watch them all up until now, and then get started with us today. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to show you is how to access the code from last week. So like I said, we're building on this code every single week. So if you want to use the exact same code as Corey has when she gets up on screen, then this is how you do it. So you just click on this link here to access the code from last week and hit download and just save it somewhere on your computer that you'll be able to access. Okay, and now I'm going to show you where to put that code. So we're going to go to the same website we've been going to every single week for our arcade sessions, arcade.makecode.com. If you have your game saved locally on your computer, they should pop up here. No need to import if it comes up here. But if you do, click this little import button, import your file, browse, and I can see that it is the last thing that I have downloaded today. And I can go ahead, and now it's just going to load up like every other project has done all the weeks. And you can see all of the amazing code that we've been doing over the past 4 weeks. So we have done so much code. And even if you zoom out here, some of the blocks are hiding down in the corner, but we've gotten through a lot. And we have our lovely simulator over here on the left-hand side, which is loading up. Okay, so a few weeks ago, we gave you the task of adding some sort of music or song to your code, to your game. So if you did do that, I want you to hop into the Q&A section now and tell us, where did you add the music? What music did you use? Did you use some preloaded music, or what did you do? So tell us all about it in the Q&A, because we love to hear about what you guys are doing at home. But for now, I'm going to go in here and I want to be a little bit more creative today, okay? Because I've played the piano for years. I used to always play the piano, and I've written down some notes to a song that I really want in this game. So I'm going to look in this music section and see what blocks can I use to make this song. So I see these ones here, which have all of the preloaded songs, and they're great, but I want to make my own. And I can scroll down and I see play tone middle C, and I recognize middle C as a note that I would want to use. So I don't see any other options. I only see middle C, and that means that there must be an option within this block. So I'm going to put it in on start and click on that middle C. and a lovely keyboard comes up. So I'm very comfortable with this layout now because I know the keyboard. And middle C is obviously the first note that's highlighted there because it's where you usually would start on a piano or on a keyboard. That's where your thumbs would sit. Okay. And then I see I have my high notes, perfect, my low notes, and my sharps and my flats. Excellent. On this block as well, I can see that I can change the beats of the note that I want played. Okay, so now I'm going to start adding in the notes to this song that I love. And I think it'll work perfect with this theme that we have going on. So my first note is a high E. So what we want you guys to do at home is we want you to follow along with me. So do the code with me. We're not going to play the song for you. We want you to follow along and then guess where the song comes from or the name of the song, okay? So follow along with me and take your time. You can pause if you need to and try and guess where this song comes from. So I want another one of these note blocks, and I know from previous episodes that I don't have to go back into music. I can actually just right-click and duplicate that block out and change it. My second note is going to be a high D. Okay, and both of those are half a beat. That's okay. Okay. Next note is high C for half a beat. Perfect. Next note is middle A for a full beat. I want that note. That note's a little bit longer for a full beat. Okay, so now I want my code to take a break. I want it to pause for a second or breathe for a second. And I'm going to have a look in the music section and I can see that there's a rest. So that's actually a term that's used in music. So I'm going to bring out that, and that just means that my code will take a break for that second. My music will take a break for that amount of beats. And I want it to be one full beat. Okay, so I'm going to bring another high E down because that's the beginning of the next part. Then I'm going to do another high D. Okay, I need another high C. And then I need another high D. But this last one, I'm going to change the beat to one beat. And then I need to add in another rest. Okay. So I now have the beginning of my song here. The next part of my song is going to repeat twice before continuing on. So this is a new coding concept that we actually haven't met yet with Arcade, and it's something called a loop. So there's a section over here that's called loops, and a loop basically just repeats something that's inside of those brackets. So for example, the forever one would continue whatever is inside it continuously forever. But I'm going to change it to repeat. I want to use the repeat loop. And I'm going to bring it down here. And that means that whatever is inside those brackets will continue for that amount of times. It'll run through the code, get to the bottom, go back up, loop back up again, and then go through them again. So I know that it'll go 2 times. Okay? And now to get on to the next part of our song, I need another note. And it is another high E. If you've already guessed the song, throw it into the chat. Okay, and it's a quarter beat because this part is going to go a little bit faster. Okay, so it's a high E, another high D for a quarter beat, another high C for a quarter beat, and then it's going to take another rest, okay? We're nearly through our song. And a rest for a quarter beat as well. Then going to be middle A, so I already have that block. I'm just repeating the same blocks that I have up there to make it easier for me. Now I'm going to give myself more space. I have middle A, then I have middle G. For a half a beat. And then I have it resting for one full beat at the end. And that's the end of my loop. So that code will repeat twice. And now it'll go to the end of our song. And you know that high E is going to be the very first note that comes up. So it seems to be the reoccurring note in this song. I have a high E for a half a beat, not a quarter beat. I have another high D for a half a beat. I have another high C for a half a beat. And then my last note is going to be a high E, another high E, but for one full beat. Okay, so one full beat. Play through that song now yourself and put it into the Q&A section if you can guess where it's from. You can also just look up your own songs online, get the notes, and put them into your game as well to give your game a more personal feel. So hopefully you can see all those notes. We'll throw them into the Q&A section as well for you to catch up. But for now, I'm going to pass you back over to Corey, and we're going to get started on today's code with our game.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kaylin. Amazing. And I had a look in the Q&A there, and it does seem that somebody got it. So well done. It was Under the Sea. I'm so jealous. I wish I could code a song like that. So excellent work. So what we've seen there is Kaylin created this fantastic song, and she put it in our on start menu. So if I zoom out a bit here now, our on start menu is getting a bit packed, isn't it? So what we can do there is we can code a function to put all of that code into. Okay, now you might be wondering what exactly is a function, and functions are quite difficult. You might only learn about functions when you get to university or when you're studying coding. So the fact that we're covering functions today in week 4 of Arcade is absolutely amazing. Okay, so as I said, I want to create a function there because my on start block is becoming very, very full. Okay, it's becoming unorganized and untidy, and I don't want that. So what I can do is I can use a function for organizational purposes. Okay, so it says here, as your program grows in complexity, as it has over the past 4 weeks, we've done a lot of code. All the code that's living inside that one block, that start block, becomes increasingly more complicated. Okay, so the way we think of a function is almost like a mini program that we can write separately away from our code, and then we can just call it whenever we need it. Okay, we also can use functions for reusability purposes. And what that means is we don't have to keep writing the same lines of code over and over and over again. We can throw them into a function and just call them when we need them. And it means we don't have to keep doing the same code, okay? So I know it can be a little bit hard to wrap your head around. So here's just a little example. So here I have code written to make the duck bounce into the pond whenever I press A, okay? So here you can see all the code that I have in button A. But what if I want that in button B as well? It means that I have to go off and write all that code in button A and then write all that code in button B. But I don't want that to happen. Okay, what I want to happen is I want to create a function, and I called it bounce duck, but you can call it whatever you want. And I put all my code in there. And then when I needed to call it on button A and button B, I just called the function. I didn't have to redo all that code. So it really, really helped. Now, I'm going to show you this in real terms now when we go back into our game. And then it might, when you put it into real life, you might be able to understand it more. So as I said, our on-start block is becoming increasingly more complex and untidy, and we don't want that. So let's create a function. Let's go into advanced and let's go function. Now, we want to make a function, okay? So when we make a function, this pops up, and I'm going to call this function music function. Okay, and watch how I named it there. I used a small m for music and a capital F for function, and that's just how coders code their functions or save their coding files. And since we're advanced now, we're going to start using good practice in coding. Okay, so I called my music function, and I'm going to press done. So I can see now I have my blue function up here. So let's do what I said we were going to do and take all, and I know, sorry, my screen is zoomed out at the moment just because we have so much code, so I will zoom in a bit here. We are going to take all of the music blocks that we just done, and we are going to place them in our function, okay? So let's have a look at what that looks like now. All my music is in my music function. Brilliant. Okay. And don't forget, everyone, pause me at any stage if you need to keep up, because we really are covering some heavy stuff today. Okay. When it comes to coding. So please pause me, take it at your own pace, and then unpause me when you're ready to join. So pops all my music into function, but there is two parts to a function. There's creating the function, and then there's calling the function. Okay. So Kaylin, where did I say, or where did you say you wanted this music to play?
So I wanted it to play on start. So if you put in the call function in the on start block.
Exactly. So I created my function. So let's go back to functions and let's call that music function. See this here, call music function. And where am I going to put that? I'm going to put that in on start. And look how much neater our on start block is. It's after condensing our code greatly. Okay, so that's a basic introduction into what functions are and how they can really help us when we become more advanced coders. Okay, which you definitely are, because I'm about to have a look at the Q&A there, and you were doing things for your home challenge like on button B, make the projectile go in a different direction. You've been doing animations and walls, so you are like a week ahead of me, so well done. So the whole point of today's webinar is to learn how to create different levels, okay? So we want to create a different level when it comes to coding. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to decide, okay, do levels change all of the time? Caitlin, do you think they change all of the time?
Yeah, they change throughout the game. You can go up levels as well in the game.
Exactly. You don't ever just stay at the same level in the game. That would be like really, really boring. So in coding terms, and if you know this, pop it in the Q&A, what do we call something that changes all the time?
We call them variables.
Exactly. So what we're going to do now is we are going to set a variable and we're going to call it level. Okay. So let's pop over to variables and let's make a variable. And I'm going to call this current level, okay? And see the way I'm keeping in line there? That's called camel case, okay? Small letter at the start and a capital for your second word. So, current level. Oh, I already have one called that, sorry. Current level new, I'm going to say. Okay, but you could just call yours current level. So, now I want to set my current level new to 0, okay? And where do you think I'm going to put this, Kaylin?
In the on start?
Exactly, because I want to tell my program that when I start a game, I want my current level to be 0. Okay, so let's take out this set current level and let's put it in our on start menu. Now, we've done that, but what we need to do now is we need to create our levels, all right? And we do that with a conditional statement. So forgetting about coding terms for a second here, right? And I know you're thinking, what? But let's just take it into plain English. What do we want to happen? Well, what I want to happen is if my level is 0, I want this tile map, or else I want a different tile map. So, Kaylin, where have you heard the words if, then, else before?
They're the conditional statements in logic, I think.
Exactly, okay. I remember I said a couple of weeks ago, conditional statements are so important in game, and it's what makes a game, all right? So let's pop into logic, and let's take out if true, then else, Okay, so the second one here. Let's take this out. And I don't have anywhere to put that because it's gone grayed out. So I'm thinking the best thing to do here now is to create a function that's going to change our levels for us. What do you think, Kaylin?
That's a good idea.
So let's go back into functions, and remember to pause me at any stage because I know I'm moving fast. So let's go back into functions and let's make a new function. And I'm going to call this one start level. And I'm going to press done. And don't forget to put your conditional statement into that function. Now, when I was talking about taking it away from coding and talking in just plain English for a second, I said that I want to say, if my current level is 0, then I want this tile map. Okay, so we know that we can do that because we used it for score before, if you remember. We need to pop into logic and we need to take out this comparison, this 0 equals 0. So that's diamond shape. So let's take it out and put it in where true is because that's also diamond shape. And if you remember for the score, we had if score equals 0. So our current level is a variable, isn't it? So let's go into variables and I'm going to take out current level new and I'm going to pop it in to where that first 0 is. And see the way it's highlighting for me? Sometimes it can give you a hard time, but just be patient with it and make sure the first 0 highlights yellow. Pop it in. And I'm saying, if my current level is equal to 0, then what do I want to happen, Kaylin? When I start the game?
You want it to start on the first tile map.
Exactly. I want it to be that bright blue tile map with the coral, okay? So let's go to our on start block. And a little trick tip that I learned was if you actually click on tile map and it highlights yellow, if you're on a Windows keyboard, press your Control key, or if you're on an Apple one, press your Command key and drag it out, and it will only drag out one block of code. And I only learned that like 2 weeks ago. Before that, I was dragging out code everywhere. So that tip saved my life. The MakeCode team actually had that in one of their webinars, so I was so happy. So I'm going to take that out and I'm going to say, if my current level is 0, well then I want this tile map. Or else, what tile map do I want, Kaylin?
The navy blue one that we made with Amanda last week.
Exactly. Do you remember last week you made a new tile map, so when you leveled up it looked different? Now, I am conscious and I want you to keep in mind that your game might not be the same as mine, so you might have different tile maps and stuff. So follow me as best you can. What I'm saying is, if my current level is 0, I want this tile map, or else I want to go down to where Amanda done her tile map last week, which was when you overlap with your ocean. See this? Set tile map 2, and it was like the dark blue with the rock. Let's take this out and let's try get it to the top of our canvas past all this code. Let's see, there's so much code. And pop it in. Now, let me see if this works. And I have a funny feeling it might not. It's not working. And if you have figured out why at home, pop it into the Q&A. But I think I remember. So, Kaylin, what do you think? I created the function start level, but what did I never do?
You haven't called it yet.
I haven't called start level. So great. I'm after creating this function. Amazing. But that function is useless because I haven't called it. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop back into functions and I'm going to take out call start level. All right. Now, I'm going to make sure this is the first block of code in my start block because sequencing is very important here. If I put that last, my code is going to do all of that code and then it's going to give me my tile map, which is not what we want. So let's see if we have this working. You might see in my tile map over here, everyone at home, I have made it a little bit easier for myself. I have given myself an ocean tile so I don't have to go all the way down to the bottom to see if my second level is working. But oh, I'm obviously not great at my game yet. So let's see. Okay. But nothing happened. I leveled up, So if you look at my code for when I overlap with the ocean, I level up. It tells me that. But I'm missing a couple of things here, right? So in a second, I'm going to get you to pause me, but let me tell you what you're looking out for here, okay? You're looking out for your overlap for when the player overlaps with the tile that was bringing you to the next level, okay? So you're working within this block now. And for me, that's the ocean tile. So perfect, it says level up, so it's doing that code, but it's not changing a level. And what is level, Kaylin?
Level is a variable.
Exactly. So maybe if I go into variables, it might help me. And look at all these variables I have. I see one here that says change current level by 1. And I think that makes a lot of sense. So I'm saying if I overlap with the ocean, I want to change my level by 1. Okay, so I'm not on 0 anymore. So I'm in the else part of the conditional statement. But I still don't think it's going to work because I know what I'm missing. And you're probably screaming at home. What have I never called?
The function.
I never called the start level function. Okay, so in my player overlaps with the ocean, I need to say level up, I need to change the level, but I need to call the function. So see this, called start level, pop that in to your overlap that you've created that brings you to the next level. So like I know some of you's done like ghosts and stuff. So whatever your tile map is, it's going to be unique to you. Okay. Now let's see if this works. You're probably realizing now why I have that tile map there. It saves so much time. But I promise I will give this a go at the end to see if I can actually get it to work. See if I can actually win. Okay, level up, press A. Woo! Okay. Oh no, that was short-lived. So when we went to level 2 there, I seen something with the sharks. They're not behaving like they're supposed to. So they're going in a straight line, okay? So let's use our critical thinking skills here for a second. And again, if you know where the mistake or the bug is, throw it in the Q&A if you get there before me. But what I think is after happening is if I know it's a bug in my sharks, I'm going to go to those lines of code and see what I've said. So I have said, set shark to be an enemy, set the velocity, but I've said place shark on top of random blue tile, right? That doesn't look like a bright blue tile to me. So what I think I'm going to have to do is, and do this at home, you're going to have to right click on that and duplicate it. But this time, it's not just going to be the bright blue. You're going to overlap with whatever your new tile map tile is. So mine is dark blue. Now let's see what we've got. Okay, level up. Our sharks behaving like we want them to. Give them a second to pop onto the screen here. Ooh, yep, they are. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. But what I want to do now is I want to make level 2 like a complete new level. Like I want to get rid of Nemo. I've had Nemo for 3 weeks now, right? So let's go back up and remember to pause me at any stage. Let's go back up to our start level function and let's have a look at this. It says if my current level is 0, then set my time up to bright blue, or else set it to dark blue, okay? And what the else is doing there is saying if it's not 0, then it's something else. So when we changed our level by 1, that made it not be 0. So that made it else, okay? So let's say I want to set my time up to this, but I want to say, bye Nemo. I want Nemo to look different, okay? And shout out to Kaylin for this because you want to see the way I was doing this before Kaylin showed me. If we go into sprites and we go to the very bottom, so the last bits of code, you can see set my sprite image to. So let's take this out and put it in our else block, okay? See the way I have it there? And I want to change Nemo. I want to change Nemo and I'm going to click in here. Now, this is where you can use your pixel art again and you can draw what your new Nemo is going to look like. But I am going to go into gallery And I am going to make Nemo just look like a different fish. So I'm going to take out that one. And press done. So now let's see if that happens. And I'm wondering if at home you've snuck in a little tile map there to see if yours is changing like I have. Because I wouldn't be able to get to the bottom this many times. I'm not that good. Okay. It's saying we have an error. So let's just refresh this for a second and see what happens. So I am going to go down, level up, press A. Okay, so my computer just needed a minute. Oh, better run. So as you can see now, Nemo now looks like this, which is so cool. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to make this a little bit harder. So when I overlap, and we're so good at these overlaps now. When I overlap with this rock, nothing happens. So let's write those lines of code, okay? Let's make level 2 super cool. So we're going to need our overlaps again, aren't we, Kaylin?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go to the end, and I'm going to use this like blank space here. And I'm going to say, let's pop into scene, because we know that's where our tile maps are. So let's go into scene, and let's take out on sprite of kind player overlaps with a tile. Okay. And we're going to take this out. And I'm going to give myself a little bit more room here. And I'm going to say if my player, which is Nemo, but Nemo looks different now, overlaps with the rock, I'm going to be super hard on myself, I think. And I'm going to actually say that I'm going to lose the game, because I should be very good at this game by now. I've been working on it for 4 weeks. So I'm going to say, go into game. And you don't have to do the same. You can do something else if you want. You can say maybe you lose a life or lose points or something else happens, okay? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say game over, lose. So now I have a way to lose the game, but I don't have a way to win the game, okay? So what I want you to do now is I want you to go back up to your tile map, your else tile map, so your navy blue or whatever your equivalent is. And I'm going to click in there, and I'm going to give myself a little treasure chest. Okay, so if I go into gallery in my tile map and I click on dungeon, there's a lovely treasure chest here, and I'm going to place it at the end. And let's press done. And now what I want to say is I'm going to go back down here, and I'm going to use another overlap. Okay, these overlaps are great. They make the game so interactive. So let's pop back into scene, and let's scroll down until we see our favorite line of code when a player overlaps with a tile. And this time, the tile that they're going to overlap with is the treasure chest. And if they overlap with that, I want to win the game. So I'm going to go back into game, and I'm going to take out game over, but I'm going to change that lose to win. And I'm going to press the plus button, because then I can like do whatever effect I want when I win. And I'm going to say stars. Okay, I'm going to give this a go, but I'm going to actually try go to the very end. What do you think, Kaylin? Actually play the game, see how many points I can get. So I am going to try catch the seaweed, because remember I didn't do too well there. That was only literally 1 second into the game. You can try get a high score and play this against people at home. So I am trying to avoid the sharks here. Oop. And let's go down. Oh no, there's a lot of them.
You can do it.
Woo, level up. And now my sprite is at the chest. So that doesn't make any sense. That's way too easy, okay? I'm going to make this a little bit more complicated before I finish up. I'm just going to make sure that Nemo starts at the top of my tile map. All right. And we've done this in week 1, so we're really good at it. Let's go back up. Okay. So we're going back up to our start level function. And in our else category, we're going to say we want to set Nemo's position to be at the top of the screen. Okay. So they're not getting that treasure chest right away. Way too easy. Let's go into sprites. Let's take out the second block of code there, set my sprite position. Let's make sure it's in our else category. Let's change my sprite to Nemo. And let's use the X and Y axis to decide where we want Nemo to be. So I love this little tool because it lets me see where on X I'm putting Nemo. So I'm going to put them on 71. And I'm going to go to Y and see where I want them on Y. And that seems to be the very start of my game. Oop. Yep, there we go. Now I'm going to give this another try, but sorry, I am going to use my little cheat tile map. Let me see, right. Woo! And press A, yes. Okay, so I need to get to the treasure chest. Let me see. Okay, my sprite on the controller is having a little bit of trouble, but that's just a glitch because there's so much code. So I might have to, yeah, it won't go across. So what I'll do is I'll just reset it just to give the simulator a couple of seconds just to catch up. And I'm going to try it. But if I can't get it working, you try it at home because I know it definitely works because we've written the code correctly and stuff. So let's hope. Let's hope. Okay. Ooh, that was very close there to that rock. Ooh. I nearly got caught there by the shark. Woo! Close. I won, but I only got 2 points, so that's not great, to be honest, is it? Like, if you're playing this at home, you'd really, really want to be trying to get all that seaweed and get as many sharks as you can, because then you can let someone else play it then, and then they'll see what your high score was. So that is the end of that game, okay? But that doesn't mean that's the end of the webinars. The whole point of this first 4-week block was to give you the skills and the knowledge that you need then to go on and recreate a famous arcade game like Super Mario or something, okay? So what we've done over the past 4 weeks is we have really, really used a lot of code. Like, we really have functions and variables and levels, and we learned all the basics that we need now to next week go on and create a really advanced replica of an arcade game. Okay, so I'm going to pass you back over to Kaylin, who's going to just really quickly go over what you learned, give you a home challenge, and I'm going to give you a sneak peek of what your next game is going to look like.
Okay. Thanks, Corey. You should be so proud of yourself at home because that was so much code. Even the game there was getting confused with the amount of code. So you've gotten through so much. Let's quickly recap over the code that we've done over the past 4 weeks. So this is only a few of the things. Okay, so we had variables. So that was all of the red blocks that you were using. And as Corey said today, there was a lot of them. They were the things that were changing throughout. So for example, our levels today was a variable because it would change level throughout the game. Then we had our inputs. So our inputs were our buttons on our controller. They were the inputs that we were using. So last week you added some cool things to button B. We had projectiles on A and we were moving with the arrows at the side. Then we had our conditional statements. So these were the if-then statements. So today you were using them to change the tile maps on the level. So if on level 0, it's the first tile map. If level 1, then you were changing to a different tile map. Then we briefly went over booleans a few weeks ago, but don't worry, we'll be going over these again in the coming weeks. So these are just the true-false statements that you would have seen in the little diamond boxes. But don't worry, we'll be going into them a bit more in the coming weeks. We also touched on velocity. So this was the movement of an object or of one of our sprites in a given direction. So we used that to control our seaweed that was bouncing across the screen, and also our sharks. We used velocity there to get them moving. And we'll be using that a lot in our future games as well. And then we were introduced to our favorite thing in code. Corey and I love these, our functions. So these make our code so much neater, nice and tidy, and it just makes everything easier to read. So you're able to create your function and then call on it again later on. So if you want a little refresher on any of them, just go back and watch last week's webinar or the webinars, previous webinars. We're going to put up on our on the Wakelet, we're going to put up a screenshot of all of the code that we have used over the past 4 weeks. So you'll be able to actually print it off and then show it off to people at home to show them what code you have done and all of the amazing work that you've done. And you can also use that sheet as a little cheat sheet when you're creating your own game. If you have it beside you, you can see which blocks came from where because the colors show the sections. So you'll be able to work that all out yourself. I'm going to just, Corey, I'm going to show them the game that we're going to be doing in the next 4 weeks. So do you want to talk them through it?
Yeah, this is so exciting. I spent ages on this. So this is Corey, and Corey is trying to catch the hearts, and the hearts are animations. So I know someone said they were using animations. So you can see the heart actually flash. So anytime Corey collects a flashing heart, she gets a life. And anytime she collects a chicken bone, she gets a score. But you can see that there are flies running towards Corey. And anytime the fly touches Corey, she loses a point. But there is a way that you can actually destroy the fly, and that's if you jump over them. So here, my end goal was to get to my dog, Rocky, shout out. And anytime I got to Rocky, I changed level. Okay, but you can see here how more advanced it is. A lot of people are saying, can we get Nemo to change direction? And can you see there that my sprite Corey is actually changing direction every time they move? That's done with acceleration and velocity and the Z-axis, and it is pretty tough going, but we'll definitely get there. So here, I actually tried to jump over the chicken bones because I kept losing lives here when the flies were getting me. So poor Rocky will have to do it out some chicken bones. And here I'm taking a leap of faith because I designed my tile map so that I actually can't see where I'm going. But underneath me is fire and lava. So if I fall into that, my game is actually over. So I'm collecting loads of lives now, and I'm on my third and final level. Here is where I learned to climb walls, which that is, I think, amazing. So wait and you see when we get to that. But I also introduced fireballs, okay? So these take away more lives from me. So I really was making life tough for myself. And now I'm going to try jump over and go up to the top. Now, this game, it looks, if you're watching it now and you're thinking, yeah, that's doable. It wasn't. It took me like 17 tries to get to the end. So it really does test your coding skills. And here I'm trying to get as many lives as possible because the flies were getting me and I was struggling to avoid them. They're pretty tough. And if you notice, the flies are coming at me, and that's done with maths, and that's done with less than and equal to my position. And at the end, I collect Rocky and I got 20 points. It says my high score is 41. I really don't know how I got that. That was a tough game, but yeah, that's what we're going to be doing over the next 4 weeks. And it is a little bit more complicated, but I think we'll be well able. So next week, we're going to start building out that game. But I don't want you to think that it's going to be like week 1 when we started this. It's not. It is going to start off with us creating a background image and new sprites and stuff. But we are going to be jumping into animations and tile maps and lists and arrays, which are new. So that will be pretty fun. So well done, everyone, on all your hard work. Your home challenge now, okay, is to plan your next game using the sprite planning sheet and the game planning sheet, which are going to be available for you at the link on the slide. So aka.ms /HomeSpace files. That's the wakelet that we go to at the start of all the webinars, where you can get like your YouTube videos and any of the home challenges that we do. So I'm going to show you kind of how I planned my game. And I'm sure yours will be a lot more detailed and creative. So my player was Corey. My enemy was a fly. And my food was a chicken drumstick that I was collecting. And my projectiles was a fireball. And then my actual game and the MakeCode Arcade team, so the people who developed the software, actually created this game, and I just changed it to suit me. So I changed my character. So that's what I want you to do. And here you might see person 1 is Corey, and you might see that there's a person 2, but that would be like a couple of weeks down the line. There is a chance for multiplayer. But I called my game name Corey's Life. If you have any other ideas for me, pop them in the Q&A because I really couldn't think of a name. And my idea behind the game was that Corey catches lives while avoiding the flies who are also after the chicken drumsticks. I have to find Rocky then at the end to progress onto harder levels. And so I know that we have a couple of questions. So there was a lot there in the Q&A, and I'm delighted that you're being so engaging throughout these webinars. It's so much fun to read what you're doing. So, Kaylin, did you spot any there?
Yeah, I noticed there was one really good one. Can you do more than one level?
Oh, yeah, definitely you can do more than one level. So you've seen there in my game that we're going to be creating, I had 3 levels. And how you do that is in your if-else conditional statement. So in your if then else, you would say if my current level equals 0, and if your current level equals 1, or if current level equals 2. So you just keep going as much as you want there.
Brilliant. And then can you change what the enemies look like?
Yes, definitely. And Kaylin showed me how to do that with my sprites. And it's really easy. You literally just say change shark's image to, and just change what the shark looks like. So it's really easy.
Brilliant. And then there's another one about the sprite facing direction you were showing us there in the game.
Yeah, so your sprite can change direction. We use acceleration for that. So we say if our acceleration is less than 180, well, then the sprite changes image. And you can even see there when I was climbing the walls, I had hands and stuff. So that's all done with velocity and acceleration, which we will cover next week.
Amazing. That's super exciting, Corey.
So well done, everyone, for all your hard work over the last 4 weeks. And as I said, it doesn't end here. That's just the end of our first game. Next week, we will start to build out the other game. And if you want to download any of our files, or if you want to rewatch any of the webinars, pop on over to aka.ms/homespace files. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.